Welcome back to another episode of Archie Sonic Character Files and exploring the histories of the inhabitants on planet Mobius. In this episode, we take a look at the wacky duo known as Verti-Cal and Horizont-Al. Well, if you know me and my Forgotten Media series, you know I have a thing for looking into lesser-known stuff. And Archie Sonic is no different, as they have a lot of characters that didn't get much screen time or just show up in one story and that was it. So for my first pick of obscure characters, I felt like covering Verti-Cal and Horizont-Al, or just simply Cal and Al for short. They made their first appearance in issue 2 of Archie Sonic in the story Vertigo A Go-Go. It's mostly about Sonic finding a hidden spring that launches him into Cal and Al's zone, a wacky place of nonsense with the scenery constantly changing and needs two oddballs to find the laws of gravity. Sonic thinks that they are working for Robotnik, but Cal and Al state that they have no idea who he is and warn him about the dangers of power rings. The story ends with Sonic returning to his world after that weird trip, and Cal and Al tell the readers to send letters to Archie Comics if they want to see more of them. And I guess they got enough because they later appeared in issue 4 in their own story, which they just describe how their zone works and showing off their wacky baseball skills, and they later made a cameo appearance in issue 16. They disappeared for a while until they showed up in issue 59 in a very drastic way. During the final days of the original Robotnik's life, his ultimate annihilator weapon caused strange things to happen to other zones. Cal and Al's zone was almost destroyed in the process, but they managed to survive. Over time, they began to blame themselves in letting their home get destroyed, so they evolved into giant robot demigods to fight it out. Sonic and Tails stumble upon this nonsensical zone, where Cal and Al quickly capture and brainwash them into fighting in their places. Now it's Sonic serving his new Master Cal and duking it out against Tails, who now serves Al. But eventually the two manage to snap out of it and become friends again. Tails then tries to talk some sense into both Cal and Al, telling them to put aside their fighting and become friends again, or at least neighbors. Although they'd ponder at the idea of going back to the old days, they ultimately go back to their feuding while Sonic and Tails manage to escape their chaotic war zone. As the portal to their zone closes, Tails concludes that they'll just be fighting for all eternity. This would have been the end for Cal and Al, but they made one last appearance in the Sonic Universe comics during the Scourge Lockdown arc. It's revealed by Cal that their never-ending feuding had become so big that it was damaging other zones, so the zone cops captured and stabilized them with their inhibitor collars to strip away their powers and revert them back to their original forms. Now they reside in the zone jail in the No Zone, being easy targets for all the other inmates to bully and push them around. When they notice the newcomer Scourge, the anti-Sonic, was taking some beatings, they take pity on the guy and try to help him out and befriend him. Despite Scourge's annoyance with the duo, they were the only ones who showed any kindness to him in jail, and Scourge would have to live with it. That is, until Scourge's team, the Destructics, were captured, and he slowly regains their trust to plan an escape. He even saves Cal and Al from being beaten up by Geoffrey St. Croix, the anti-Geoffrey St. John from Scourge's dimension. The duo believes Scourge has finally opened up in being their friend, but he quickly dismisses it by just saying, "It's not like I needed an excuse to stomp the guy." Then one night, the Destructics set their plan in motion by causing a massive jailbreak. To keep the zone cops busy a little longer, Scourge instructs Sergeant Simeon to break off Cal and Al's inhibitor collars. Now free from their restraints, they are once again the giant robot demigods and begin to lay waste to the prison in their blind fury. But the destruction is cut short as Warden Zobotnik orders the cops to fire field of effect inhibitors at Cal and Al, once again stabilizing them. As the chaos at the jail begins to die down, Cal and Al beg Scourge to save them, but the anti-Hedgehog ignores their pleas and abandons the duo, leaving them at the mercy of the zone cops. And that concludes the history of Verti-Cal and Horizont-Al. Definitely some of the more weirder characters from Archie Sonic. The best way I can describe them is that they're simply relics of a bygone era, back in the olden days of Archie Sonic when it was more wacky and lighthearted. Heck, their first story is the closest we can get in seeing a Sonic version of Alice in Wonderland. Their next appearance with the giant robots is a bit jarring. Since Archie Sonic was shifting to being more serious, and I suppose that's what they tried to do with Cal and Al, update the characters to fit, which ended up being more of a one-and-done deal back then. But it was a nice surprise to see them return for one more story. I kinda like Cal and Al just for the oddities that they are. I would have been fine seeing them come back as minor characters just popping up every now and then, if the series continued on. Despite being demigods, we don't see much of their powers. All they do is mostly defy the laws of gravity, mind control, and turning into giant robots. So they're not quite as chaotic as other reality-bending creatures like Discord or Mr. Mixus Pitalik or whatever you pronounce that name. It's interesting seeing their history and starting off as good guys as they mean no harm to Sonic's visit, then they get corrupted to be made more evil and hell-bent on destroying each other. Then, after being captured by the Zone Cops, they seem to have buried the hatchet and have gone back to their old happy-go-lucky ways. Heck, they even prefer not going back to their previous ways of giant robots before they attack the prison. Although it is a bit sad that they don't get much of a happy ending. Their evolution seems to be a parallel with how companies try to do something new with certain characters but end up going back to the originals. Like Looney Tunes, for example, started off as wacky slapstick, then they tried going for a more edgy take with Looney Tunes Unleashed, and when that didn't do well, they immediately went back to the old wacky ways of Looney Tunes. Well, that covers this character file, so until then, I got a juice!